We will push on from Camogie to the action this weekend. And as ever, by the way, I should say, of course, our GAA coverage on the Indo Sport podcast is with thanks to AIB, who are very much at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county. And in 2025, they are celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. And with this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. You can check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Martin and Colm still with us. So the provincial finals, Colm, they're back. Certainly 3 of the 4 we're into. Scheduling for a moment. Just let's keep the controversial air for a moment. So I'm looking ahead to my weekend and I see that the most anticipated match of the season thus far, in my book, the All-Ireland champions defending Armagh against a lot of people's favourites, Donegal, is at 5:25pm on terrestrial television, RTE and BBC. The country will be watching. Meanwhile, Clare and Tip, both fighting for their lives in what is effectively like a knockout kind of game, will be an amazing occasion. And the hurling starts at 6 on GAA+. And then I flick to Sunday to see what the double header on RTE is. And there is only one game because the Leinster final is on and there's nothing before that. Now, I think the origin of this is that the Donegal ladies are playing the Armagh ladies in the football, so the LGFA inquired about the possibility of a double header. And so if the Ulster men's final was to go at, say, 1:45, that would mean the women's final would have to start at maybe midday, which is not ideal. And so hence the move to Saturday. And I'm sympathetic to all that, but like just at a glance as a sports fan who wants to follow this sport, it's like, what a mess. Again, it's like, it's just, what are we doing here?
I suppose, first of all, Clare and Tipperary was always going to be fixed for 6 o'clock on that Saturday evening. There are no lights in Cusack Park. There are no lights in Clones to allow for, if obviously in Clones, if there could be extra time. And obviously Ulster GA and the Ulster LGFA wanted to come together as a visual for future integration. So you'll see a lot more of this, obviously with integration in 2 years' time in mind, that they will join their provincial championships. Obviously, 2 o'clock on a Sunday, I would have always have thought that Ulster would be the 4 o'clock game there. So if that was the 4 o'clock game and Leinster was the 2 o'clock game, you probably would have slotted in this fixture. But Leinster are also playing their LGFA, or the Leinster ladies football final is on before the Leinster final. So you're caught both ways with this. Having it any earlier in the afternoon on a Saturday would be a bit of a risk, probably crowd-wise, although I think Donegal and Armagh is always going to sell out. It's such a fixture. But this is, yes, the scheduling is not ideal. There is no facility to move the Clare-Tipperary game back too far, because obviously as it gets dark, it's going to be a problem with no lights there. So, yeah, an unfortunate clash. I think we'll see more of it as you bring ladies football and football together, and obviously camogie and hurling are going to see more of this when they're going to be on the same bill. And it's such a compacted season that there's just not going to be the room, and we are going to see more of this. You possibly could have brought the Ulster final forward, bring them all forward. I'm sure there's reasons for that, but that would be Ulster and Munster talking to each other, and they all want to. Obviously, Munster GA are not really too bothered about what's going on up in Ulster at this time of year. We have our game 6 o'clock. That's it. We were in place here, and everybody else can work around us, and that's the nature of these things.
I'm sympathetic, Martin, to the complications, but the net result is not good.
Well, I wouldn't be sympathetic at all, actually, Joe. I mean, the nonsense starts from the fact that August and September are closed down, and whatever about September, that's too much squeezed into such a short time. And it doesn't matter what you do, it's got worse, because as Colm says now, you're trying to do double headers with the ladies football or camogie or whatever. It's got more complicated, and yet there's no clear, no indication of a change. I mean, Giles Byrne said recently it would be a matter for the next president. Now, he's only in this is 15 months into it. I don't understand why that is the case. And secondly, it's not really a matter for the president. It's not an executive decision. It is a decision of if somebody wants, if the GA as a whole want to change it, or a majority want to change it, or whatever. But that's the problem with that, everything squeezed so tightly. And it is very odd, as I said, there's only one match on Sunday at 4:15. But that's what you're going to get as long as. And in fairness to people making the fixtures, they have no choice, and they're told you have to have everything finished by the end of July for football, or into August for ladies ladies football. Why ladies football, and by the way, why ladies football and Camogie haven't availed of the own goal scored by the GAA, I do not know. Instead of that, they're squeezing everything in as well, and the end result is they're all losing out, and they will lose out. And as I say, I'm amazed at Giles Byrne saying, well, if he wants it as this, but that's fine. But to say it's a matter for the next president, I can't understand that, because the next president doesn't come in until 2027. Is it 2027?
2027.
So therefore 2028, because he couldn't do anything or even start the ball rolling. So I can't understand that.
Because I thought when Tom Ryan put it in his report this year,
yeah,
I suspected that's
more
imminent.
It's more or less shot down now.
Yeah.
It is and it isn't. Maybe there's a sense there. I mean, I don't think it's. I certainly don't think it's gone back to September. And I would have said it here.
No, but August.
But I would have thought there was flexibility, and I still think that. And I know there will be counties, and Cork and Galway will always, who have the biggest block of club fixture, will say, no, we need 16 weeks to finish. But sometimes there can be contingency plans for reaching an All-Ireland final. Now, Cork and Galway are most likely to be in two finals of all counties, and that would be problematic. But I think there's a yield of a week there still. I still think an All-Ireland final can go into August by 1 week, possibly two. But I think the first step would be one. But you're not looking at beyond that. That's not going to happen.
2 weeks would help. And by the way, Galway, they don't have that problem in hurling because they don't have a provincial championship, so it's not an issue. It's not as big an issue.
It's not an issue, but I suppose the other issue is, Martin, you'll have a club senior final perhaps in November. Now I know they've played them before, but it's probably
they still do it.
They still do it, right? Yeah, but I mean, it can, it might be that it would go further in. I mean, I was at a Galway final years ago in December. So they can press on.
In 1993, Derry played their county final on St Stephen's Day and got 5,500.
I guess as maligned as the provincial championships are, it's been a good year for them. I know Kerry took care of Clare in fairly mundane fashion, but Kerry Cork was a great match. We have two, because of what happened to Dublin, two matches at the weekend now, which people are really excited about, and the ticket sales for LouthMeath already, I think we're past 50,000 territory, which is going to be an extraordinary occasion. And you were at Galway Mayo in McHale Park at the weekend, Colm. I know this was one of those wind-affected games. So Galway declare at half-time. It's one of those jobs. Mayo go back to within level with maybe 15 minutes to go. And it's the hooter goes. Mayo need a two-pointer. Matthew Ruan has a go, misses. But it was, and we were chatting briefly before we came on air, and you said as much, even watching on TV, it was a very vibrant, pulsating kind of a game. Like, it was just exciting. It wasn't a chore to watch at all. It was great.
Yeah, and 27,000 plus, upwards of 27,000 were in Castlebar. And, you think when Munster and Connacht played there a few weeks back and they got 25,000 there, and you say, well, will you see that in Castlebar? Because the Mayo crowd has eroded somewhat. You could always depend on the Mayo crowd to get out, but during the league there was 6,000 at the Mayo Tyrone game, and you're saying they're starting to lose the faith here. But they came out in their droves for that game. And I was watching Dylan McHugh block Paul Towie in those closing stages, and Galway broke for the lead point. And I said, well, there's a man who's not... there's a man who doesn't think the provincial championships are finished completely, Dylan McHugh. And you can say the same about Conor Gleeson and his save. Those moments really mattered, or that the impact of the draw would somehow shape the Connacht final, in that there would be a reluctance. Not in those closing moments, or not in Liam Silk winning that ball to get it to Liam O'Conneilla for that winning point, and certainly not with the reaction of the Galway crowd, who were out onto the pitch afterwards to celebrate a fourth. This wasn't a first or a second or a third in a long time. This was their fourth in a row, yet they got out. They were so thrilled by it. It was a magnificent contest, it really was. And every one of the provincial championships this year, and I'm not saying it's a rebirth of the provincial championships, but they do matter. And they mattered to Galway to beat Mayo, even though it was their fourth in a row, and they have beaten Mayo in the Connacht Championship in three of those now, 3 of the 4 years. It really mattered to them. It really mattered to Kerry to get over the line against Cork. That was another great game down down in Park Cueve, and obviously I thought Tyrone and Armagh was an exceptional game too, right down to the wire. The Ulster Championship hasn't really lifted in the way, and then you had Meath turning over Dublin in the manner that they did, and obviously the justification of taking that game out of Croke Park. I was kind of surprised to read Ger Brennan's comments last week from the launch to say that their game should have been in Croke Park and the game should have been in Croke Park. Whatever chance you have of levelling the playing field, it's probably going to be taking the semi-finals out, small as it may be. Now, Dublin will always travel and they'll travel well and have no issue with it, but I thought it was significant to bring the game down there.
Martin, it can't be a coincidence that we're talking about all of these good games with the new rules.
Yeah, well, I think Galway Mayo would always have been would draw the big crowd anyway since Golson's time began. I mean, the rivalry is. But just on that, I would still zap the Connacht or zap the provincial championships. I think their time has come. Their time is run. They interfere with the scheduling of the All Ireland and the whole lot, and it still gives the likes of Kerry huge advantage. I don't care what anybody says. They only had a match against Cork, which up to this year wasn't even a contest. And meanwhile, Donegal, for instance, or Derry would have to win 4 to win Ulster. Yeah, the new rules. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's certainly have helped a lot. I have a big issue with the imbalance between the goal and the 2-pointer. I think goals were down this year in the provincial championships, even notwithstanding last weekend's. They're still down. The explanation apparently given is that, well, there were more goal shots than in other seasons, but sorry, I mean, Arsenal had plenty of goal shots last night as well, and it didn't do. I mean, it's all about the goals that are scored. I have an issue with that. Yeah, there's certainly the quick free, the 2-pointer. I just think that imbalance to me is a problem. But in general, a lot of them are working well. I'm not so sure still about the 3 players back, because it's a form of offside where 3 players cannot play any active part in the game. Doesn't matter what happens. They can train from January right up to the All Ireland final day, and the last 10 minutes in the All Ireland final or any other game, they cannot play. They can play a part in the game. I don't think that's right. I think it's still a great pity that they didn't address the hand pass, which is we've had as many hand passes as ever. But there's no point. That battle is over for now. And yeah, they have improved a lot. The game is a better spectacle. But we were starting from such a low base that it wouldn't have taken much, I have to admit, in my opinion, to make it a better spectacle.
I think the 3 up is. At the outset, I thought it would be the most problematic rule in terms of implementation and everything else like that. But I was wrong on that, because it is providing all the space for all the action to happen.
Where are the goals? If there's so much space, Colin, where are there no goals? Why are there less
probably
goals?
Less
Fewer
goals. Well, probably less goals because there is a greater preoccupation with 2-pointers.
Correct.
So the imbalance is there, and yes, it is something that will have to be addressed, I think. It was abandoned quickly after the provincial championships last year. There was a bit of unease around it, but I think it will be back on the agenda. Either that or the 2-pointer will be removed. But I don't think. I think it's such a spectacle, and I go back to the point I made before. The Kerry-Tyrone game this year, David Clifford scored a wonderful hat-trick up in Pomeroy on a difficult windy day. And the 9-point accumulation for that was cancelled out by 4 2-point kicks onto the wind and carried over by Tyrone. I says, well, that's just not right. Kieran McGeeney kicked a flag in the Tyrone-Armagh game, and Tyrone got 2 points, which was 66% of the value of a great David Clifford goal. So it's completely skewed. It's completely skewed. So I think either address the value of the goal to incentivise teams to stop playing around. But the 2-point option is like looking for the drop goal in rugby. They're just playing around the arc and really good at it. Teams have become really, really good at engineering that 2 points, because there's far less, I won't say far less effort, but the chances of a 2-pointer are far, far greater of engineering even the goal chance.
But the drop goal is still 2 points less than a try. But I'll ask you this one. The 3 back. If you were playing and you played not an All-Ireland final, but you played at a reasonably high level. If you were playing and you were in a county final, and in the last few, or any time in the last few minutes, 3 players have to stay back. They cannot join the game. Name one other game, one other field sport where players are prevented. This is an offside rule. In rugby and soccer, you can obviously join the play by doing it correctly. You cannot. You can stand with your arms folded and watch the play for as long as the ball is in the other half of the field.
Well, obviously, different players at different times can fill the three, so it doesn't always have to be the same three players. But there is no doubt in my mind that the space created by the three up is probably the biggest catalyst to the game that we're seeing, along with the back pass to the keeper, the prohibition on the back pass to the goalkeeper, and the three up is creating pockets of space that aren't always visible, but they're there. So I think that's worth sacrificing, Martin, for a few players to put their hands on their hips in the last 10 minutes of an All-Ireland final for the game that we are seeing above everything else. And I'd have more reservations about the two-pointer, which I thought I'd love, and I'd have more reservations about the kickouts being restricted to going beyond the arc. But I have to accept they're creating great contests and they're creating uncertainty that a team won't have the ball and carry it for the next 2 minutes. So it has reshaped the game. There is no doubt about that.
Not the hand passing, though.
Very, very difficult to restrict hand pass. Number one, and this was tried in the pre-season 5-6 years ago. Number one, referees have enough to do without counting hand passes.
Could I also jump in there? I spoke to Gavin about this. They tried several games with restrictions on hand passes, and players kicked the ball 5 metres to each other.
Yeah, and that happened, Joe. That happened 5-6 years ago, right, where a player would maybe kick 2 metres just to break the chain, and then the hand pass.
Hand pass, little kick to you, and we're starting again.
It still will be more difficult. I mean, we never saw those trialled. I mean, but just get back briefly to the 4-minute goal or the 4-point goal. I think they panicked a little bit after the first game in Croke Park, where Connacht. I mean, that Leinster team was exceptionally weak, and Connacht got a few early goals. And I think there was unfortunately that was it seemed to be a big influencing factor because they dropped it very quickly.
They did. Yeah. It was a strong reaction. Look, this was never going to be perfect. If we're all agreed it's even better, and we're not in full blown crisis here, I think that's a great achievement on Gavin's part and the FRC's part.
And again, handing back the ball, as unseemly as it looks to see a player running around and handing the ball, it is speeding up the game, it is creating, it is opening up. Yeah. It is stopping that clog that was in the game for so long, where teams could just delay a fraction to allow their colleagues to get back into defensive formation, and then we're into those hand passing sequences again. So at least while the ratio of hand to foot passes have increased, but you'd also have to factor in that there's a solo and go now, so the ball is not being kicked with a free kick. It's been more often been taken with a solo and go. So the hand pass ratio may be up, but at least the game is moving in the right direction and at a better pace.
One comment. Final comment. Yeah. There was there was an alternative to the 3-back, and that make it 13 aside with rolling subs that you could still play 20 players. 13 aside, have the money where you want it. Okay, it would still help create space. And you could still 20 players have them rolling on and off, whatever. That was tried in colleges football back in the 60s and the 70s. Yeah, you
were concerned about Colm with his hands on his hips, stuck up in the half. Now you want him on the subs bench?
No, I don't, because he's rolling in and out. That'll suit him. That would have suited him better.
Okay. Right, we'll come back to it routinely across the summer. Just a quick one on Galway before we look ahead to the weekend. I thought it was kind of striking that Joyce, and understandably from his point of view, gave short shrift in the interview on TV to a question about Walsh and Comr. So he said, look, we've 26 lads out there. I think the talk should be about them lads. And I get that, as it should. And Rob Finnerty is to the fore, and you've got Matthew Thompson coming along, and you've got Paul Conroy, who with his 2-pointers weighs in with 6 points. And they are not a bad team by any means without Comr and Walsh. I've heard several pundits say, no, they're not as reliant. That's a great forward line. Honestly, Comr Walsh, it's about far more than them. I don't really buy that. I think Galway need Comr, need Walsh. They're just a different team with those two in it. Discuss.
I agree. I think even now, and it's 3 years on from 2022, but I think Shane Walsh showed enough during the league that he is a huge asset, and the biggest asset perhaps to this Galway team, in tandem with Damien Comr. I can see Pádraig Joyce's probably frustration with continually having to answer questions about Comr and Walsh, because they are more often unavailable than they are available. And I think probably from those comments there's a sense that we need to move on from Damien Comr and Shane Walsh. If they're available to us, they're back, but we can't keep hanging our hat on them. But I think they're a different team when those two are going well.
Yeah.
and they have to be going well. Damien Comer came off the bench against Dublin in the league game. He looked good. He looked sharp. I thought Shane Walsh up until he came off in that game. So rarely they miss each other so often that they're rarely on the field together. It's a frustration. I think Galway are obviously a better forward line, much better forward line with them together and playing well.
I'd put it to you, Martin, almost to the point that if Walsh and Comer were fit and going well, I have Galway as All-Ireland favourites, and without them I don't. And
Well,
Joyce will hate that and Galway will hate that.
Yeah, but that
that's
is the
how I
point.
see it.
If they're going well, I mean, for instance, the All Ireland final last year, Shane Walsh wasn't in the Kerry, and that I think is the frustration for them first of all. By the way,
You think of Walsh against Dublin and he hobbles off, but like his ball striking, his point taking, he's the difference.
well, you think of the Colm and the 2 pointers. I mean, he was doing that
Made for it, yeah.
before. Yeah, but I think. Unless they're fully fit, and that is the issue. Maybe up to now he would have to play them when they weren't fully fit. He doesn't have that. I remember Mick Dwyer said to me one occasion that one mistake he made was one match. I think it was might have been the 77 semi-final. One of them. The mistake he made was I played 2 injured players. He says, and you never ever do it. He said, and I never did it again.
That was Niall Buckley in the 1998 All Ireland final, was it?
No, it was
Kerry.
With Kerry, yeah, and that was so. I think that is the problem. If they're 100% right, yeah, but otherwise no, because it doesn't matter how good you are if you're carrying any negative more.
Let's assume for a second, and you hope it's not the case, but the trend continues, and they're either not fit or they're not going well. They're down at full fitness. Where do you have Galway without them?
Look, they're still in the top 2 or 3. I mean, we don't know how these new lads will stand up as the season goes ahead. And I mean, just an interesting thing there, for instance, Galway, like a great celebration in Galway and enjoy last Sunday, of course. But by Sunday week, Mayo could well be in a better position. Galway playing Dublin, whom they only beat once in 90 years. Admittedly, it was last year, but by 1 point.
Yeah.
Now. There'll be a backlash of some description. You can rest assured from Dublin. Mayo play Cavan. So by Sunday week, Mayo will almost certainly have 2 points based on all known form. It may be enough. Already they may be in the preliminary quarter-finals. Galway could easily lose to Dublin, be heading to Derry in the next game. So they're the and then have to finish off against Armagh or Donegal. So, it's conceivable that they wouldn't even get into the preliminary quarter-final. That's the reality of it. Mayo could well be in a better position by Sunday week.
Yeah. Let's look ahead to the weekend coming then. So, Ulster final, defending All-Ireland champions against a lot of people's favourites. Last year went to penalties, Donegal prevailed. Lots of us looked at McGeeney and Armagh and said, it's just not going to happen. There's a curse here, they're nearly men, and they proved everyone wrong. I was saying to Ronan before we came in, it's kind of mad here. In trying to preview this game, I need to know what the wind is, and I need to know who has it in the first half. So, it actually has taken such an outsized importance into the shape of a game. Never before has the wind been such a factor. But who's declaring at half time, who has the composure to chase a lead, etc. It's kind of a wild thought that the conditions now are essential to preview a game.
It's amazing, Joe, that the wind is always blowing down the pitch these days. It rarely blows across a pitch.
We had a letter in about that from somebody who really knows their stuff, and to mangle a long explanation, the prevailing wind here is obviously southwesterly, and for the grass to get as much sunlight as possible, the pitches are north-south facing so that they get sun most of the day, and therefore the prevailing wind goes
straight through
length of the pitch. So this is our lot, and we're stuck with it. Now, all your years covering GA, you never heard that one.
Try Pearse Stadium, and the wind goes a lot more straight down the pitch.
It is the number 1 for wind, isn't it? Wexford Park. If we're judging, if we're putting our wind list, Pearse Stadium is number 1.
Build a wind farm
and Wexford Park number 2.
Can I ask you something? Because I actually hope on Saturday there's no wind, because it does take on an outsized importance. Because I did tune into Galway Mayo and I missed the first 5 minutes, and I sat down and it was literally like they should have a ticker along the bottom going Galway with the wind first half. I kind of hope there's no wind on Saturday.
There was no wind last year, Joe, for the Ulster final. It was a calm Sunday afternoon, a little bit wet, and it was a brilliant game. Great contest. First half especially. Obviously, things got tense after that, but the first half especially, I thought the quality of the kicking between Donegal and Armagh that day, I think it was Armagh were 9 from 11 or 10 from 13. It was both teams were around that. There was about 5 missed chances out of about 24, 25. So the economy was really good. Oisin Gallen, Conor Turber, it was almost a shootout between them. But the remarkable thing is, Armagh are All-Ireland champions, and they went out against Tyrone starting with 6 of that team. I've never seen a transformation of All-Ireland champions from a final to a championship.
And what's happened with all the changes?
Well, there's injuries. Obviously, Rian O'Neill is missing, and I think Kieran McGeeney is adapting his team to the rules. You see a mobile player like Ross McQuillan coming into it, player like Dara McMullen, who has plenty of talent and was used in the league last year. So I think Armagh are looking at different types of players to play this game too. I think they've adapted who they're using to the circumstances that are there. 6, not for 9 players. Now I think it'll probably rise by the weekend. I think there'll be more players. But Jarlath O'Byrnes is back into the team. Again, a great ball carrier, a player who you would think can clear 20, 30 metres off a solo and go if he's fouled. He's great mobility. And they have more like that. So I think they're playing a different game. I think they're playing a faster game, and the team is adapting to that.
Which is quite impressive to turn around from All-Ireland champions.
I think so. I think to win that game against Tyrone with that level of change, and as I said, I think it'll probably rise to, maybe it could come up to 8 or 9 for this weekend. I'm not sure. But it shows the depth of Armagh's squad. And it certainly underlines that if we think that they're a one-off, as in last year, I think we're well mistaken on that. I think they're very, very much among the front runners with Galway, Donegal and Kerry.
I bumped into one of the 6 in a row dubs during the week, won't name him, and I said, who wins the All-Ireland? And he said, Donegal, McGuinness. Just said McGuinness.
Yeah, but that's been doing the rounds since Jim McGuinness came back. Jimmy's winning matches. I mean, even now, and as Colm points out, that with Armagh, I can't, like, they're way behind in the betting for the All Ireland, way behind Donegal, for instance.
Do you see it that way?
No, I don't. I think Armagh will win on Sunday, but I mean, in the longer term, I don't think Donegal will win the All Ireland either. I think there's this sort of, blind faith that Jim McGuinness knows more and has plans and plots and strategies that nobody else can quite get. I just don't. I don't get that. I think there are better teams than Donegal out there, and I think, however good Jim McGuinness is, however, I don't think he'll be the difference to get them over the line, get them winning the All Ireland. Michael Murphy's return has helped. There's no doubt about that. But I did this blind faith that because Jim McGuinness is back, we the All Ireland semi-final last year.
Was it not? I mean, okay. So what he did first time around was, you'd say, exceptional. Yeah. And then he takes a group that are on the floor last year and gets them to within a kick of a ball to an All-Ireland final against Galway in that semi-final. And now he's at year 2. I say it's a fairly good track record.
But I'm not criticising him. I'm merely saying that this assumption that because Jim is back. I mean, bear in mind after 2012. When they won the All Ireland, I mean, they were after that. The magic was gone then.
They should have won a second All Ireland. Yeah. They should have won in 2014. Having taken out that Dublin team, I felt they should have beaten Kerry in that final. I would have had them as my favourites. I don't think it was the greatest Kerry team to win an All Ireland title. They were without Colin Cooper. I think Donegal messed up that day. In the All-Ireland final. They were very, very close to salvaging something at the end of that with Colin McFadden had a goal chance, and they gave away a goal from a kick out to Kieran Donaghy, if you remember as well. So
but then
they
again,
were the margins.
You say, well, then where was your Messiah then?
No, but I would also point out, Colm, that in the 2012 All-Ireland, when Mayo came back at them in the second half, Mayo shot 4 wide. I think they were 2 points down. So we can make all the matters at the end is the record books.
Well, you look back at a county like Donegal, who have won 2 All-Ireland titles in their history, and I think it's a fair achievement to win one and to get back to an All-Ireland final. You look at what Armagh did last year, and they've won 2 All-Ireland titles. They've obviously been to more All-Ireland finals in the past, but they've won 2. So it is a really big. If the benchmark is Kerry and Dublin, who have won so much, I don't think it can be that. Jim McGuinness took that 2011 team and improved them in 2012, and that was the pathway. They got better in 2012, and they played a more expansive game. And I have a suspicion they'll get better. Probably the scope for improvement may not be as much this year as it was from 11 to 12. I think they were more expansive last year. But you go back to that All-Ireland semi-final against Galway, Joe, and Oisin Gallen had a kick from a free to put over to give them the momentum and go ahead. And he pulled it. And you think if Michael Murphy's standing over that goes over. And Donegal could go on and win that game. Chances are they probably could have been All-Ireland champions again. Maybe very, very close. Obviously, all these games are very, very close. So I think there's scope for improvement for Donegal from last year to this. We probably haven't seen it in this championship yet.
They weren't electric against Down.
No, and Monaghan came back at them. They were good against Derry early on, and then when Derry came back at them, they went again. But I don't think they've been great in their last two games.
Philly McMahon, he said they're uncharacteristically giving up a lot of space, goal chances. So he's not convinced either of Donegal.
But Joe, also your 6 in a row, Dub. I mean, they spooked them in 2014. And again, if you go back and look at that game, Dublin missed 2 goal chances early in that game, and if they had got them, and again, a
lot of ifs and buts.
Yes, there are. Yeah, but if you're making the argument about ifs and buts in favour of Donegal, they could make it against them as well. And you remember that? I think there were 9. I think Dublin were 5 points up at that stage, and they missed 2 goals. So that would be would have been a wipeout. So again, it doesn't matter. There wasn't a wipeout.
But you do rate McGuinness, obviously.
Yeah, of course you can. No, but I'm not a great believer in all the messiahs that the sideline. It's like my whole thing about you only ever hear what was said to what the winning manager said at half time when the team is behind.
Yeah.
You never hear what the losing manager said.
I think what
never asked either.
I have to say, Martin, the pickup from McGuinness from 2023, where they were losing to Down. This is the same Down team that they dismissed by 6 points the last day quite easily. The pickup from that, okay, they were coming from a very low base. But he lifts all boats in the county.
Yeah, we're
denying that.
There's absolutely not like a low-hanging fruit magic tactic a la 2011 that he can whip out this time. I agree with you there. I don't think we're going to see something this year and we're like, whoa, what's just happened? But the point is, his players think he's the Messiah.
Yeah, of course, and they've as I said, they responded after when he came back, but. And they're there and thereabouts, but they're not. I don't think that Jim McGuinness returning will be the difference to make Donegal win. I don't see them winning the All-Ireland.
You don't think that the players?
I think they're better players elsewhere.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And you're leaning towards Donegal Saturday?
Slightly. I think, again, go back to Jim McGuinness, the Messiah. But I think Jim McGuinness, of all managers in the game, I think he puts more stock into, more emphasis on winning a provincial title. He cherishes the Ulster title more. He talks more of winning an Ulster title than he does about anything else. So it starts with Ulster, where I always get the sense, and even more so since last year, that Armagh look at the broader picture, and that's maybe why they only have 6 out now. I think it's a style issue, but they're quite happy to wait on players to get back, knowing that it's going to be a long season. I don't think the Ulster title, having won an All-Ireland, is such a big obsession. Won't stop them. There'll be Dylan McHugh blocks and Conor McGleeson saves on Saturday evening as well. But I just think Jim McGuinness's view of the Ulster Championship may percolate into that dressing room. I mean, this is his 6th season as Donegal manager in an Ulster Championship. They've been to every final. They've won 4 previously. They've only lost 1 Ulster game. Okay. It's a phenomenal record in a difficult province.
It's going to be an amazing game. So you've Donegal by a nose.
Slightly.
Your Messiah's McGeaney.
Well, I think McGeaney hasn't won an Ulster. I think he'd like to. I think it might be a little stone in the shoe that he needs to take out.
It should be an amazing game. I'd say the most likely outcome is extra time, isn't it?
Which it's been the last 3 years. There's been extra time in Ulster.
Most of you are one-sider, so.
And 2 of them have gone to penalties. So. They're missing out a lot of money on the replays, aren't they?
LouthMeath at Croke Park on Sunday. I read 50,000, did I?
50,000 upwards. It's more likely to be 60,000. I heard this morning, actually, it's going to be 60,000, and it may even creep up a little bit more than that. So
amazing.
Martin's decision to zap the provincial championships. I challenge you to go down to Louth, more so even than Meath, and promote your idea that you should this week go into RD or somewhere like that and promote your idea that you're going to zap the provincial championships.
You can't have systems and structures based on emotion, I'm afraid. I mean, in that one. But just on that, I took the trouble to root out the match report when Louth last won the the All-Ireland and the Leinster title in 1957. So, Colm, this has got to emulate on Monday now. This was John D. Hickey's opening sentence the day Louth beat Dublin in the 1957 Leinster final. Game, match, contest. How utterly inadequate those words appear in relation to the vibrant and thrilling Leinster football final, which Louth defeated Dublin before 30,234 spectators at rain-swept Croke Park. For my own part, I prefer to describe it as awesome football conflict, and even if on a few occasions enthusiasm and frustration caused some to offend the canons of good sportsmanship by adopting a pugilistic attitude, it was a memorable war that I will forever treasure. So that's your...
Is that a fancy way of saying there were a lot of fights?
Exactly, yeah. But 30,000 for Dublin and Louth in 1957. A Dublin team, by the way, that went on to win the Ireland the following year with Kevin Heffernan on the board. So it is a massive. It's fantastic.
It is, and even the prospect of 10,000 more, upwards of 10,000 more than that was there in 2010. I think that's a legacy of 2010. I think 2010 and what happened obviously with the late controversial goal has probably added fuel on top of the novelty and on top of the fact that Louth, for the first time ever, they're in 3 Leinster finals, minor, under 20 and senior. A phenomenal achievement for a county that I always feel is untapped with regard to Gaelic games. They've 2 of the biggest provincial towns in the country, Dundalk and Drogheda, and you never get the sense that Louth gets enough out of either of those. This could be a catalyst for that. There's huge interest in the county. Their under-20s were huge support down in Newbridge last week to beat Meath and win their first in 44 years. So it's going really, really well for them. I think momentum is with them.
It's a 3rd Leinster final in a row as well for the seniors. So it's extraordinary run they're on. Ger Brennan said there's a very healthy hatred between Meath and Louth. Does that go long before 2010? Is like a border? Like I would have thought Meath would have looked at Louth and said, "Listen,
probably
you might hate us, but we're not really thinking."
It probably is a little bit like England and teams around them that Meath probably.
Everyone hates.
They're bigger up, yeah. Everybody, all the neighbouring counties do. I would say maybe Cavan the most of all. I think that's probably. Cavan would be a big rivalry going back years.
See, I think of Meath and the Dubs.
Yeah, and I think Meath's biggest barometer is always the Dubs.
Yeah.
But obviously Louth have beaten them twice now in their last 2 games by 10 points. They've been heavy defeats and...
So can Meath bridge that? 10 points last year and Meath were awful. It was bad. And then in the league they beat them by 5. Missing a few Louth, but it's the league, so who knows? Are Meath bridging this 10-point, 5-point gap?
Well, Louth have got players back even since then. They have their all-star Craig Lennon back. They have Sam Mulroy. They were in action the last day against Kildare. Craig Lennon did particularly well, so they've good players back Louth even since that league game. Yeah. And that augurs very well for them. Conor Grimes too, a powerful ball carrier. So Meath have players back as well. Obviously Matthew Costello and Ronan Jones off the bench was very good the last day against Dublin. And you'll always get a lift from beating Dublin. Obviously you will. And there's no doubt about it. I think the bookies have Meath slightly favourites. But
do they?
The expectation is really around Louth that this is it. I'm not saying it's now or never because they have a lot of good players coming, but there's a sense for this group that coming to their 3rd Leinster final. There's no Dublin here. There's a team that we beat by 10 points in the championship last year. They can't have improved that much. So this is it on Louth in many respects, that this is such a good opportunity because Dublin are going to come roaring back with a new team in Leinster. They'll probably win 2 of the next 3 or 3 of the next 4 in Leinster. It'll take a while before it flatlines in terms to fully dilute their dominance, I think. So great opportunity for Louth. They are playing well. They came from behind against Kildare. They were 6 down at one stage.
And really brilliantly. I mean, and
played good football.
Yeah, good football. Several leaders stood up. There were big 2-pointer scores, great composure under pressure. It was a great performance in many respects. And then Meath were excellent against Dublin. I mean, they pressed the life out of them. A hyper intensity, took their 2-pointers, defended really well. So they both come in here feeling pretty good, I would think, Martin.
Oh yeah, I mean Louth even last year did well against Dublin, but I just think that the lift that will give Meath. I mean, some counties, and Meath would be among them, and you'd find it with maybe in the west when Sligo and Leitrim, say if they beat Galway, they expand. So in this case, a Meath. Meath are in a situation now where we've beaten Dublin. We cannot. What does it mean if we don't win this? If we don't win the Leinster title? I just think that the improvement. There'll be a big. They'll just, and also the pressure is on Louth, and we don't know how they'll react to it. You could say the same pressure actually, oddly enough, isn't on Meath because they weren't expected to beat Dublin. Louth, I think they'll see this as the chance, and you're right. Dublin will be roaring back next year. I just think that I think Meath will do it.
Struck me, do you? It's the biggest crowd these two sets of players will have ever played in front of. Mm-hmm. And Ger Brennan was at the launch, and he was asked what kind of game he expects, and he said, "This is going to be nervy."
I would agree with that. I think it will be on both sides. It's new to me that this level they've been playing Dublin, but and the majority of them have been in semi-finals or quarter-finals. I think it is. And my memory of 2010 was how nervy it was that neither team got into any flow.
Right.
That it's different against Dublin because you're not really expected. You can throw everything at it. But I think my memory was 2010 was a really edgy game right up to the end.
Yeah.
That neither team could break for it.
I was even edgier afterwards.
It was. And for days and weeks and maybe years afterwards, yeah.
So this is great. I mean, they're two bumpers, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, the level of football I think Donegal and Armagh will produce. I think Sunday is more of an occasion, more of an event, obviously. But quality-wise, football, Donegal and Armagh will be of the highest standard.
It could be our All-Ireland final, you never know.
It could well be.
So I have, Martin, I have you, Jim... Not for me, McGuinness. You're going Armagh and you're going Meath.
Armagh and Meath for me, yeah.
Okay, and you're going...
flip the coin on both for me, Joe.
Donegal Louth?
I think Donegal Louth.
All right, okay. Isn't that, how often do we get to say that? Fellas, thanks very much. Is there any other business? I think that's about it.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. We will move on. That is Colm Keys and Martin Breheny.